Hello, everybody. My name is Marika Kuźmicz, Muzeum Susz, and I have a pleasure today to moderate a discussion dedicated to Anu Põder and the issue of fragility of her works. And I would like to thank you to my guests. I will just briefly introduce you. We have here today Anders Herm, who is Tallinn-based art historian and curator. Hello, Anders.
Hello.
He is also lecturer in contemporary art at the Institute of Art History and Visual Culture and the head of the master's program in curating at the Estonian Academy of Arts. And he has formerly worked as a curator at Tallinn Art Hall in 2002-2012 and headed the Estonian Museum of Contemporary Art until 2015. We have also here Hikka Hjo. Hello. Hikka is professor of the Estonian Academy of Arts, Department of Cultural Heritage and Conservation, and dean of the Faculty of Art and Culture. Her PhD thesis treated the conservation, management, and contemporary art. She has studied and worked as a conservator in Berlin, Amsterdam, and Rome, supervised a number of conservation and technical investigation projects in Estonia, curated exhibitions, conducted science research and conservation and technical art history. Hikka is also awarded with a number of national and international rewards, and recently in 2022 with the Order of the White Star of Estonian Republic. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. And Maria Kask. Maria is an architect and a daughter of Anu Põder. She is a co-founder of Salto Architects. Salto has taken a particular interest in the meeting points between architecture, landscape, design, and art, and their practice is mainly focused on conceptualization, public spaces, and buildings. Contextual approach to architecture implies awareness in each location, its inhabitants, customs, politics, economy, and natural environment. In other words, size specificity forms the starting point for each work of Salto architects. A significant part of Salto's objects is made up of public buildings where a critical and interdisciplinary approach plays an essential role, like Tallinn Cruise Terminal, Fotografiska Tallinn, and many others. In Salto's art projects, Anu Põder has always been by our side and give advice. And she has shaped the worldview and creation of the Salto, where art and architecture intertwine into one whole. So thank you so much, Maria, for accepting this invitation. It's a very unique opportunity to have you here because I believe that you were also the witness of creating works, or some of works by Anu Põder. So as I already said, our panel is devoted to the issue of ephemerality and fragility of Anu Põder's legacy and the objects she created, most of them. This is a kind of paradox of Põder's oeuvre because this oeuvre consists in ephemerality combined with a huge, precise execution. And this feature, I think, of her works was, let's say, encapsulated in the title of her exhibition that took place in 2017, the exhibition Be Fragile, Be Brave, in Tallinn. And her works are, most of them or all of them are delicate, fragile, as I said, But at the same time, they bear testimony to the artist's sculptural mastery and the tremendous sense of the material, which allows her to perform bold gestures. So today, several years after Anu's death, when there are still a few active Estonian conservators who knew her works and herself, we already have quite serious problems in keeping her works in a good condition, available to be presented at the exhibitions, available to be transported for being exhibited abroad, etc. So I would like to ask you, maybe I would like to start to question to Hikka, if you agree, because I would like to ask you, how do you see the working process with these objects in the future? How do you see lending them out, displaying them? Do you think that it will be possible? Or does it not have to be possible? Maybe it was Anu's way of working is a kind of challenge through the institutionalization of the art market. I would like to also ask you, Hikka, how do you see Anu's works in this sense, in a broader context of contemporary art and conservation of contemporary art?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I have to stress that I'm not, as a conservator, I'm not really a specialist of Anu Põder. Also, I supervised a few of our student works just before the social exhibition in conservation, some of her works. But yes, indeed, in a more broader sense, the ephemerality can mean very different things. So actually dealing with ephemerality can mean very different things in contemporary art conservation. In contemporary art conservation, I stress, I'm conservative. And for example, it's also like kind of divided into groups. And for example, there is works which are conceptually short-term, but the authentic material as such is not important. And in Anu Põder's case, we have examples like the screen, for example, or rubber dolls, which are each time recreated. And in these cases, it's always important to follow the instruction of artist, or then when the artist is not there anymore, we have to kind of set the parameters how we recreate and where the materials, but often also we have to understand that it's only partially recreatable. So this is kind of a complex what you have to understand, and ideally you set these parameters together with artists. And then there is another type of artworks which are how to say, ideologically, I would say, ephemeral. And I don't have maybe good examples from Anu Põder's oeuvre, but most Estonians know it's very extreme example is the work by Sirje Runga, the Great Love, or the how it's called, the Great Love, or Beautiful Rotting. And it's a huge painting which she put outside in the seaside, and the idea is fading away. So basically, the conservation of this work would really get into conflict with the idea of the work. And then there is a third type of artworks which are created not conceptually ephemeral, but just artist was using ephemeral materials. And probably I would suppose that Anu's works are mainly yeah, she probably didn't mean to be ephemeral, but just the materials are ephemeral, and she liked those materials. And I also know from Anu's interview from 2007, I think, yeah. She said that in certain moment in her career, he somehow got free from this stress of creating durable artworks and got free. And so, but on the other hand, the authenticity of her materials seems to be extremely important for her. So it's a very interesting discussion. And then in conservation of contemporary art, we usually never start from materials, but always from the idea or from the concept of or context of artwork, and the relation between material and concept. And then we get deep into each work. So it's the analysis is always like case by case. And I think in Anu Põders, you can, maybe I'm not so informed, but as far as I know, the deep analysis of Anu Põders' works are still to be done and understood, how we behave, how much we give value of the authentic material, how much is recreatable, how far we can go with conservation, and then also the issues and how much we can show them, or should we keep the works in I don't know, dark storage space because they preserve better. So always to find a balance, but understanding first of all the concept of the work. So. Yeah.
So do you think that you say that the conservator procedures for her works are developing at this moment? You mean you develop you're trying to find out the way how to preserve these works.
But both from material point of view, for example, if we take Anu Põder's this medical plastic, and we know that for today they lost much of the material itself, lost much of the elasticity, and then it's appearing all these micro cracks. And as a conservator, I would say let's keep it in the dark storage room because, and then in the controlled microclimate. But then you ask again that to whom we keep it in the dark storage room, and certainly the documentation nowadays, or in case of contemporary art, is crucial, and also using like I don't know, 3D documentation options, and maybe sometimes it's really wise idea to show the documentation or virtual 3D models or something. So I think this work is still all to be done with, in Anu Põder's case.
Yeah, thank you so much, because you mentioned a lot of interesting traces. I will say that we will back to it later. Thank you so much. I would like to also ask you, Anders, from your perspective as a curator and exhibitions organizer, how do you see this problem?
Well, the problem, of course, is huge and multi-layered, as everything that goes around with her works. But I think in many ways she was moving in her career from this very hard traditional sculpture form towards more object-oriented art, and then from the object-oriented art towards installation art. And I think that we have the less problems with the installation art because this is by nature an art form that must be reassembled every time it is exhibited. So, and we have very few problems with her early, like 70s sculptures in that sense, because it's also a material that is made to last. So that something in between the 80s and mid 90s, this is where the core of the problem lies, really. and there are all these questions. Were they meant to be destroyed in the end of the day? Were they not meant to last? Or are then crucial? And yeah, and the coats, the dresses, the bags, all these autobiographical memorabilia that she has actually assembled in her artworks. It's not only a question of material, but it's that object. So it is her personal item, and she reveals like herself, her biography, her personal stories through these materials that are used, and this cannot be replaced, I think. But also moving to works around the world and showing them at the exhibitions is always risky, and it's risky for the museum. But yeah, I don't know. There is no good or one answer to that question. Of course, I mean, if we show the works, the works get more damage. If we don't show the work, they cease to exist somehow. And so then we are down to reproductions, and that's also not that anymore. So yeah, I think that her work from early 80s towards the mid 90s is very, very problematic.
Yeah, I think that decisions about providing works to the other institutions should be made really carefully and smartly, and this is how I think the cooperation of Sush Museum with the Estonian institutions looked like, because the decisions regarding to each object were taken very carefully, but with the openness. The owners wanted to present Anu's works abroad, so if it wasn't too danger, we got the permissions. But each decision was taken very, I would say, carefully and after the consideration. And I'd like to thank you so much, Anders. I would like to also, of course, ask Maria, because you established Anu Põder's estate, and the estate keeps still a quite, important core of her works. There are 3 institutions. So museum in Tallinn, which is the owner of the main part of the works, also museum in Tartu.
Sorry, I must also say that I'm currently also a curator here at the Kumu Art Museum. So I also represent
yes, the institution, this part of the collection. Yes, thank you for mentioning it. But still, the estate owns important part of her legacy. So I would like to ask you, Maria, how it looks from your perspective as an owner, but also a daughter of the artist.
I must say it's all like really like personal. So it's kind of like having these mom's little sweet things we have, like all this. I think we are left with 10 or 12 works right now, and I was myself. I was this kind of really mommy's girl. I was always with my mom. I even didn't go to kindergarten. I was like her little satellite. So I saw really closely how she worked, which material she used, how she did it. So it was kind of really like nice process that she was kind of always working, but I don't know how she did it, but she had always time for us, for all 3 of us. So I had like 2 sisters, all three of us, she raised us alone. So it was kind of like always mom and us three children. So all these materials she used, I somehow feel that it is important part of these materials to age, or they were not just a net. I found from my mom's toolbox today, I found this net she used in many many places or many works. She used this net, and this net is actually, we had this country place or countryside, and it was meant actually, we had bees. We have always had bees at our country place, and this net was to protect your face when you went to take honey. And also this pink plastic, as my uncle was doctor in biggest Estonian hospital, then this pink plastic was meant for when you break your big parts of the body, like ribs, or then to fixate or to make this kind of cast actually. And I just found out yesterday actually that this pink plastic came from Ukraine at that time. So all this plastic or metal, or even this soap what she used, it's quite interesting because like some of the soap she used making tongues was made by my grandmother, this kind of like really handmade, used old time methods soap. And some of this soap was bought from this Lasnamäe market. Lasnamäe was this area we lived, this kind of Russians made big blocks of flats area, and this soap was like, I even remember the name of this soap. It was this Kamei, this really smelling synthetic soap, and they kind of like mixed these. So it was, they were not just materials, they all had some concept of, but when I think about my mom, then I would still say that I think that she would have wanted this works to like travel, or because she was such a like positive or interesting, like she was always interested in things, or she wasn't just kind of doing stuff alone, or so. For us, of course, we are really careful where we will send these works, and we have given like 10 works to Kumu actually as a gift later, but we have actually sold right now only one work to Tate Modern, and like, yeah, for us, we would just like to make some, like if there is a chance to make some great exhibitions, which such exhibition is actually right now.
Thank you so much, Maria, for sharing so many interesting details about the process of creating her works, because I of course I was aware of the fact that some facts regarding some materials, but not that many. So I think that we still can dig a little bit deeper, and you know, the some new interesting details will appear if we're talking about the materiality of her works and the history of these materials used and everything. And yeah, I think that your memories as a witness of creating these works are really, super important and valuable. So thank you so much for sharing this. I hope that some more that kind of interesting details will come to us during this conversation. So we have these fragile materials that we know and delicate, sometimes mobile structures of these works, and the same high, very high precision of implementation of each Anus objects. So how would you address this paradox that is contained in her works? This, this tension between fragility and this precision. And do any of these two aspects you think stand out, or do you think that there is a certain balance between them planned by Anu Põder? What do you think?
I want to answer that question. I think it's very much a question of personality. And I think that she's super precise artist, as you just told. And she knew exactly what she wanted to achieve, and she did it. No matter what, she went for the maximum result in the frames of artwork. So there was no compromises, I think, and she cleared it from everything else in many ways. And she was creating this one particular work for this particular moment. So this event of the work, to the encounter of the work for the first time, for example, in the context of an exhibition, that was the most important thing for her. And she has stated that in many times. So every second exhibition of the work was already kind of not her thing. So she, in a way, she was really ready to give everything for that first moment. So I think this is where the precision comes, the fragility comes, I think, from the materials used, the concept, the idea, the personality, otherwise, or that she revealed something that was very personal, very delicate. But the other thing, and I think it's more or less more the case in the 90s, I think there was this particular mentality in the 90s that art is not for forever. So it is a temporary thing, that it is an event and it's not meant to last forever. And that was kind of a dominant mentality of the 90s art, also by the 90s artists who didn't really care about, because the event, the happening here and now was more important than the eternity of the work. So I think that there was something of that as well in her ideas that she operated with, and the third thing is that she was perhaps not so fully voluntarily estranged from these hard, noble materials of the proper sculptor, let's say the bronze and marble, but she went for these materials. And as Maria told, she chose them very carefully. She knew exactly she was looking for these materials. And the materials themselves kind of insist on their temporality, or so they are limited in time, or that they will not last. So it was kind of encoded into this into their work. But that, of course, didn't took away her desire to work really on the edge, and that kind of was the case as I see it or feel it now. and it's very much present also, or the same mentality is very much present in, for example, also Alice Kusk's work, whose work is actually behind Maria there, behind her, one of the paintings.
Oh, that was my question. What was
My
in
yeah, my sister is Alice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you
Yes.
know, see better.
So there's the same kind of mentality in her work as well. So I see it continuing in that way.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a very nice clue. Yes, Hikka, yeah?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Anders that actually this aspect you mentioned, and Anu Põder seemed that she was also very conscious that the materials are not long lasting, that they are vanishing. And this is also as an aspect, if we now decide to keep her works to, I don't know, eternity, yeah? Because the museums always have this, I don't know, will or wish or obligation even, and that it's always we are talking about not that long term, but really we preserve them for eternity. And so this is also as an aspect we have to consider that actually they were never meant to be, and were also not meant to be preserved from the artist point of view. So it's also aspect in conservation if we want to freeze them now. And I think it was in the same interview in 2007 when Isabel Aso, the conservator of Anu Põder's work, she was just asking that, for example, we can cast your works made out of the soap, for example, to epoxy resin, and they preserve forever. And then Anu was really had a doubts about it because somehow the ephemerality and vanishing is also, it's kind of written in the work. So it's also something to analyze.
Thank you so much. Yes, you put a few important questions or issues on the table. So like the 90s and the, like, let's say some performative aspects of her works and the wind of changes that we had at the time, which also in some way is connected to her works, I think. So I would love to get back to this topic in a while. But Maria, would you like to add something to this, or?
Maybe only it's this that it is amazing how few tools she had. She had like, I have this box of tools right now. There are like, I don't know, 5 things. And it's also, for me, it's amazing what she could do with these, because she didn't have all these opportunities to like wide selection of tools or materials. I just remember our childhood actually was like this, that we were alone with my mom, 3 children and my mom, and we were like so poor that I remember my mom came home and she had this half of the bread, and then she cut it into 4 pieces so we wouldn't eat each other's piece. So this was the context actually. So yeah, I'm also, she was this really precise but at the same time really, kuidas on osav inglise keeles? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is what was it became really visible when you can see this. You know, we have only a few moments when we can see her working. I'm talking about this short documentary film made, I think, by Estonian television, and we can see. I wasn't aware of the fact, knowing her sculptures, this made with the pink plastic, how very yeah, not many, how poor workshop she had, how only a few tools she had, because they seem to be made, I don't know, by some very, professional team of the sculptors, and only thanks to this documentation we can see that she used to work at her apartment, actually, having you running somewhere in between and using only a very simple tools. So she was also super talented and really high skills as a sculptor, and this is something which is no doubt, like that was something which is obvious, but it became obvious when we have a chance to see how she used to work.
Perhaps these 5 tools can be now given to the conservators at the art museum. Only these tools are allowed for them to use when they encounter Anu's work. So
Yes.
same tools, the same works.
Planned by her for creating this works. We mentioned about the 90s and this moment, which was also a very special and crucial for her work. And I would like to ask you, because can we assume that the artist referred in some way through the formal aspects of her objects to some global or local, but political and social issues? Because of course her works seem to be very personal in some way. We know, of course, that she used to take her own silhouette as a starting point for some of her sculptures, not all of them, but some. But on the other hand, her sculptures were also sometimes humanoid, some, asexual, or rather even showed male figures. So it can be everyone, like everybody can identify in some way with her works. And thus, can we assume that Põder was going beyond her subjectivity and maybe tried to diagnosing some problems and issues affecting society at that time? Can you agree with this, or how can we read them in this way?
I think that in a way, I think that she was as political as her body told her to be. So not more, not less. And I think that she very much poured herself into the works, as very few artists do, actually. There is this very pure, honest relation, almost, of course, art is always mediated, kind of, but in her case, I strongly doubt that it is that very much mediated. So it's really straightforward in many ways. And it's interesting, as the local art critics, up to a certain point, they only talk about kind of in her context about the trends and styles and materials, and from certain point onwards they only talk about I don't know, the feminine role, the feminine experience, and so on. But I believe she was an artist of great categories, kind of soft and hard, aggressive and tender, banal and poetic, sexual and repulsive, violent and caring. So all these things mixed together. So I don't think necessarily that Kinder Surprise or I don't know, Robert Zextol's in her case are so much, criticism of commercialization of sex, but rather of sculpture and art. So I don't know, tiny micro sculptures inside a chocolate egg. Everybody want an experience that would be a kind of circus experience, a wow experience, from art. So this is, And she herself has kind of referred that the sex dolls have the same similar sculpture form she uses. So it was, okay, I don't have time to work it myself. I can kind of use them as a ready-mades in my art. And of course, it brought in certain connotations which she never denied, because her works are multi-layered. And this was just one layer of her work. But in many cases, the political or social context is more visible. For example, for me, like in the works like Lectern or Metal Lining, for example. And I think personally, the most political work that she ever did is Liquors, because it is a kind of a mocking of certain type of humankind, kind of the smooth and soapy type, the kind of the ass lickers or something like that. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but for me it's like that. But most of her oeuvre is about trying to share the discomfort of being a human, being a female, being a mother, of being a body, of having a body, or working through the kind of, I don't know, country girl Kanepi legacy stamped in her body and ego and personality, her biography, all this autobiographical material and so on. And this then touches the question of, I don't know, Eastern Europe, female role, female sexuality, political situation, memory and past as kind of very important political concepts in the context of 90s when these works were made, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that if we're, talking about the many levels of her works, in some way there is only a topic of the collapsing of the collapsing in general, the collapse which is there. And I think that we all remember the 90s, even if we were very young at that time. But that was a very special moment when the world has been changed very, radically. And there was I think that we can also feel it in her works in that way. What do you think, Hikka, Maria?
I just wanted to share one really strong memory I have. It was 1991 when Estonia was part of Russia, and then Estonia wanted to become free, and same year we did. But I remember this moment where we were still part of Russia, and then tanks started to come towards Tallinn and towards government building. And then what we did, or what the Estonians did, was we put the big concrete blocks to protect government building. And what Anu did was that she took us children and we went to this government building, and then we painted all these concrete blocks. And it was so okay, and it was so much fun, and it was so really, I remember this so well. But right now I have been thinking that it must have been like, tanks are coming, you are going with your children to paint some concrete blocks. It's and until right now I have this really proud feelings at how bold, or is a bold right word,
Yeah.
yeah, how bold she was.
Yeah, this is the like this micro story is a part of our common Middle Eastern or Eastern European story that we all share. And if we have that kind of memories, I think that, well, we remember the past, so we know the history and we can prognose, you know, the future, starting point from them. And I think that in this point, Anu's legacy is also a part of European legacy, and it should be broader known and it should be broader considered because of that also.
Yeah, but for me also that some people somehow say that she was not doing political art or neutral. So for me, it's not true because I think at that time, these decisions that you didn't do, this head of Russian politicians, what sculptors had to do, this decision not to do it was like actually really political. And when we had these times that we couldn't express ourselves, or then I think Anu found a way to express herself really like honest and intimate way actually. So for me, this was a big part.
I totally understand. Well, maybe this is not the moment for my personal, you know, reflections, but to me, especially moving are these works by Anu made around 86, 87, these collapsing figures. And to me, the first recognition I had when I saw them, it was like some hunch or some presentiment of the Chernobyl catastrophe, because at the time my mom was pregnant with my younger brother, and it was something which affected us very strongly. And I thought that maybe it's in some way it's also about this, because you know that was something what was in the air, this fear we had. I don't know, maybe I'm very wrong, but you know, that was my first thought when I saw her works many years ago actually, because I know her works for like around 10 years maybe. So yeah, that was very strong feeling, and I still have it in the back of my head. Hikka, would you like to maybe add something to this, or?
Not being really a specialist of Põder, as I said, but more like expert of materiality, maybe. I was just thinking that this period of change is also like coinciding with the Anu's, how you say it, freedom, or how she said, I think in this interview again, that she got somehow free of the stress of making durable art. And then this 1990s tendency we had in Estonia, it's not only in Estonia probably, that you really, I mean, it's not only Anu's work, but a lot of work is made of very ephemeral materials, and you just like make things for a moment, like Anders said as well. So it's all like connected. Also the changes in society, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I would like to also ask you for the issue that is also important for Anu's recognizing of Anu's works, because she seems to be like a forerunner of the recycling of some materials. And well, we know of course that there is her late works refer to the issue of consumption, maybe perhaps excessive consumption, that they are not explicit, but they can be taken position on the consumption, global market production, and so on. But Anu had already presented a very interesting point of view, close to today's young artists, some of them, by reworking, as I said, recycling her old works, for example. And we can see it in her early works too, not only in these sculptures made in the 90s, but also earlier. So can it be assumed that this way was more than just, I would say, a need of obtain materials, but an attitude, a kind of a statement by her? Yeah, that, you know, because Anu almost always worked with the materials, as we said already, that had been used before: clothes, sheepskins, or linoleum floors from the hospital, as we know. So can we agree that, especially from this point of view, her works can be her works are really contemporary in this sense, and still can be inspiring for the youngest generation at the time?
I think that in this context, the question of the younger generation is no doubt there. But I mean, it's very hard for me to imagine, for example, certain set of young female installation and sculpture artists from Estonia without her legacy. But I think that in her case, the recycling is kind of more like this Soviet woman mentality. Nothing is thrown away because nothing is available. And as Maria said, especially in the 90s, after the collapse of the Soviet art system, and the artist became suddenly very poor because that had kind of supported their work and existence up to that point. So the mentality is that all the children wear the same clothes as their siblings until they're completely worn out. Everything can be reused in order to make new clothes and so on. So I think, so this kind of everything that is self-made, everything is do it yourself, the mentality is kind of very dominant. I see it in my mother. Probably it's also true for Anu's case in many ways. And Anu herself has said in this interview that having 3 kids made her a master of sewing machine. So, and you see that's the life that is sewed together by the sheer like willpower sometimes. And she made it through. And I think that this is kind of her attitude towards recycling, perhaps. And this I see in the kind of later works from 2000s, when when she really starts to use materials for that purpose, kind of. But I think that this was a trait that she never really had a chance to fully develop, which is a pity, actually. But yeah, I don't know, Maria perhaps can reveal more on that, because she knew exactly how it was.
How it was, yes. But thank you so much, Anders. It's super interesting, and as you know, there's a perspective of the DIY. Yes, it's like really something which, in a very new way, fits to Anu's work. Yeah.
So Anders, you passed this question to me. We spent a lot of time at the countryside, and we had this super nice grandmother and grandfather. And I think one really important thing was that my grandfather was deported to Siberia a long time ago. And when after he came back, I think it was really like traumatic experience, of course, and he spoke nothing about it. But only thing what I remember, and I'm quite sure it was same with Anu, that you can't waste food, that you have to eat everything you have, you can't waste things. So maybe this was one side how she was raised and how we were raised. But I really liked at the opening, Cecilia Alemani said that you can feel from these works that how Anu put time into these works. And it was actually, I later thought that it was exactly how I would describe how she raised us, that she put time into us. And I think it was maybe even same with all these materials, that sometimes using these old materials also gave this context to these materials, as I answered the first question. But I also think that she really enjoyed this process, or she was interested in this materials and all this even this work she has, this dress where this hand is bleached. So she kind of is using the time actually. So you can't separate even these things from her work, I feel.
Thank you so much, Maria. That was the question I didn't plan, but I think it would be also interesting to ask you. Was it more interesting? I think that I know the answer, but just to confirm, am I right that for her the most interesting part of being artist was the process of creation? How was she also keen in exhibiting her works? How do you remember her? What was the most interesting part of this process for her?
She wasn't. She was really in a way she was really a shy person. So I remember her always working, doing some little stuff, but also at the same time, she, as I said, she always had time for us. So I don't actually know how she did it, but I'm quite sure that it was this process she was interested in, and until the end, she was never bitter or bad mood or disappointed, or she was always it was kind of I don't know how to how to end this sentence, but
maybe that was the will of making, of creation, that was the...
And she also included everybody who was next to him, or next to her, actually. And I've actually spoken with some of her students, and they always say that she was she was with us, that she was quite demanding, but in this way that she really believes in you, or she takes you seriously, or she expects or thinks really good way about you. So this was the same way she was with us, actually. So
And did she also encourage you to create something by your own, or she was like, it's your decision, like?
You mean later as being an architect and like
No,
this?
even sooner, like when you were children or teenagers, was it?
Yeah, we as we were like really poor, we didn't have nothing. So and then I remember this time came when everybody had these Barbies. And then of course we didn't. And I think you don't have to tape this, or you can leave this out. I just show you this. I found this really cool picture that she was sewing her stuff, and then
Oh,
we
yeah,
were.
I see it.
This is our creation.
Oh, wow.
These were
Amazing.
our Barbies. They are almost as well done as Anu's. They all has these wires inside, and so it's true actually that we all also always did something next to her.
Oh, wow.
And we had hundreds of them.
Great.
Now it's my turn to share my memory of Anu. I was, of course, I got to know her work when I entered the art academy, and the same year when I studied art history, Alice Kask was the same year studying painting, and during the lunch hours, I saw her constantly talking to her daughter. They had intense, very heavy, but very silent. So never heard a word. But I understood that the discussion is absolutely like on the edge. So they all very heavily arguing something or discussing her. So that's my memory of the first image of her. Talking to Alice, teaching her, telling her probably some important stuff about how to be an artist and how what to do and what not to do. And so yeah.
Yeah, and she by herself, as we know from the people who knew her, she was rather introverted, but always she knew what she wants to have, and she was demanding, but also for the first place, it was the demanding from herself, actually. So now we have this, you know, the body of her works. And luckily that we have Estonian conservators that are able to take care of her works. And yeah, I would like to, would you like to add something maybe, or give a comment?
So you asked about her like exhibitionist nature, or was it existing? As Maria said, indeed she was, as a person, kind of very shy, but she poured all that energy into the work, so that the work would be that would speak on behalf of her in a way. And yeah, but also she worked very slowly, I would say. She did not do that much work, or she didn't manage to do, because she was very precise, and she wanted nothing was like, okay, I will do this and then move on and do that, because everything was fully like thought through, and you see that in her oeuvre, that every detail is in the place, that everything is set to be shown, everything that is obsolete is taken away. So in many ways, I think that she's one of the most precise artists in her expression as I've ever seen. I mean,
I totally agree. Yeah, unfortunately, I had no chance to meet her in person, but like to me, her estate it's a very unique example of the of the estate where each work is important and nothing should be excluded in some way. I mean, all of these items are there because she was sure that they should be presented, displayed, that this is something which was like what was made, and she was sure that this is something what she wanted to have. So also in this way, it's a very special collection, I would say. And we have,
I just wanted to add one more thing. You asked that how much she have guided me, like personally. I remember when we did the gas pipe project, and as it was our first like art project, being architecture firm, so it was kind of like first art project. And it was Venice Biennale 2008. We placed like real scale gas pipe between Russian pavilion to German pavilion. And there Anu was a big help because we had no so much experience in doing like exhibition or like such a big scale and so on. So she helped a lot.
Yes, and now still we have a chance to see most of her works in the Museum Sush. So Maria had a chance to see the exhibition, Anders and Hika not yet, but you are warmly welcome, like all of our viewers.
I've only heard very good things from my colleagues.
Also say a final word. I just wanted to add that in a way, I'm very happy that we had this conversation today because it opened up a lot of discussions. For example, with Mario, we had a very nice discussions, and then with my ex-students, and then the people who are dealing with Anu Põder's oeuvre. And I really hope that now we take it like really, we can't interview anymore the artist, but how much Maria and probably your sisters as well, how much you know actually. And this is something to document, and we really take it very seriously now, thanks to the conversation today. So it's maybe also something for future.
Yes, I think that memories of you, Maria, of Alice, and Saskia maybe as well should be written down as a kind of, guided tour maybe for the conservators.
Also about the materials, because as a conservator, it's so great and important documentary information. So, Maria, I will call you.
Yeah, and also this, micro stories you can share as her daughters with us can make us more aware of the fact what we can see, because all of these stories are included in her works, and we don't understand the forms we can see without the stories. So thank you so much for sharing this, and I hope that we will be able to continue this, discussion in a broader sense. I just wanted to remind that the exhibition of Anu Põder, Space for My Body, will be available on display until 30th of July, so curated by Cecilia Alemani. So you are warmly welcome to visit us. And thank you so much for joining us today. Despite this, I know that you are busy, very busy. So I'm really, really happy that we had a chance to talk about Anu Põder's works in this sense. Thank you so much. I had a huge pleasure to moderate our conversation, and thank you so much for sharing all of this thoughts, details, and stories. My guests were Hika Hjob, Anders Herm, and Maria Kask. Thank you so much, and thank you for accepting this invitation. And I hope to see you soon, maybe in Sush.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.